HBO shows from the 80s that you forgot existed.
Unbelievably funny.
Looking to throw, and he throws into the end zone. Touchdown!
The story that follows was born.
Long before HBO became known for The Sopranos, Curb Your Enthusiasm, Game of Thrones, it was experimenting with all kinds of unique and often weird television shows. Back in the 80s, HBO was still trying to figure out what worked, and the result was a mix of comedy, horror, sports, and even puppets. Some of these shows became cult classics, while others have been lost to time. Let's rewind and take a look at some of the forgotten TV shows that aired on HBO in the 80s. Number 1, Video Jukebox. Growing up in Connecticut, our cable company didn't offer MTV till the late 80s, so a lot of the first music videos that I saw were thanks to Video Jukebox, which aired on HBO between 1981 and 1986. The monthly series featured music videos from all the popular recording artists of the time, like Duran Duran, Michael Jackson, Cyndi Lauper, Prince, and more. Now, I specifically remember watching a special edition of Video Jukebox that featured the making of We Are the World, followed by the world premiere of the now iconic video. Number 2, Not Necessarily the News. If you think The Daily Show was the first to mix comedy and current events, think again. Not Necessarily the News was HBO's answer to the rise of satirical news, featuring sketches, fake reports, and a weird Sniglets segment with Rich Hall.
Boy, the American dictionary is truly a living piece of heritage, isn't it? Unfortunately, every year there are thousands of words that accidentally get left out. Collectively, any word that doesn't appear in the dictionary is known as a sniglet. If you've discovered a sniglet, mail it to us. It's Sniglets, P.O. 27901, Hollywood, 90027.
One review I found online compared the series to SNL, but with more political jabs and fewer FCC restrictions. Not Necessarily the News also featured a pretty impressive writer's room, consisting of Conan O'Brien and other future Simpson scribes, like Greg Daniels, Al Jean, and Mike Reiss. Number 3 on the forgotten HBO shows list, First and 10. Before Ballers and Hard Knocks, HBO's First and 10 was their first attempt at a football-based comedy, starring Delta Burke and O.J. Simpson, Billy.
Do you want to know the scoop on tonight's show? Do you want to hear from me and some of the players? Well, call this 900 number. It'll only cost you a few dollars a minute, but it's worth it. Hey, Bo don't know this.
The show followed a fictional pro football team, the California Bulls. It mixed sports, a little drama, and a lot of raunchy humor, something only HBO could get away with in the 80s. It was over the top and full of 80s cheese, but it had a loyal following. Number 4 is The Hitchhiker. HBO didn't just do comedy, it also dabbled in horror. The Hitchhiker was like The Twilight Zone mixed with Tales from the Crypt, a series of creepy, often twisted morality tales with a mysterious drifter as the host. Each episode featured big guest stars like Willem Dafoe and Kirstie Alley, but it was the unpredictable endings that kept audiences hooked. It was eerie, surreal, and totally 80s. But at the end of every episode, I remember the Hitchhiker would often give life lessons.
Confession is good for the soul.
Love and business don't mix.
Friendship takes many forms. To return is to realize you've never left.
Anger and obsession can't rule forever.
Some people wear masks.
You have to protect yourself any way you can.
To the true believer, there is no death, just a passage. But the truth, when it's bent, has a way of snapping back. The ties that bind can be evil.
But once you tell yourself you're living in a jungle, it's easy to make compromises.
But when you fool around with what is and what isn't, well, you run the risk of being tricked by your own sleight of hand.
Who would take advice from a homeless drifter? Anyway, next is my favorite HBO show from the 80s. And I wouldn't really classify it as forgotten, perhaps just overlooked. Fraggle Rock. Created by the late great Jim Henson, Fraggle Rock was one of the most innovative kid shows of its time. It followed the adventures of the Fraggles, the Doozers, and the towering Gorgs, all while teaching lessons about friendship and responsibility. And who can forget that theme song? Dance your cares away, worries blah. Side note, I remember HBO featured a contest that my family entered and I really wanted to win, where the winning family got to visit the set of Fraggle Rock and see how the show was made.
Name your favorite Fraggle, send in your entry blank, and you might win a trip to Fraggle Rock.
We didn't win. Ray Bradbury. Based on the works of the legendary science fiction author, the Ray Bradbury Theater was an anthology series that brought Bradbury's imaginative stories to life. Each episode, introduced by Bradbury himself, delved into tales of fantasy, horror, and science fiction, often with a moral or thought-provoking twist. The show featured notable guest stars including Jeff Goldblum, Drew Barrymore, and William Shatner. Now, while it may not have achieved mainstream acclaim, its storytelling and atmospheric presentation left a lasting impression on its viewers. But not me. I watched a few episodes and found it underwhelming. 7 on my list is America Undercover, HBO's groundbreaking documentary series that tackled a wide array of subjects, from crime and addiction to unique subcultures and personal stories. Known for its unflinching and in-depth approach, the series provided viewers with a raw and honest look at issues often ignored by mainstream media. Long before streaming platforms made documentaries widely accessible, America Undercover was pushing boundaries and shedding light on the human condition. It was a testament to HBO's commitment to bold, thought-provoking content. Number 8, Brain Games, an educational program ahead of its time. Brain Games was a half-hour show consisting of brain-teasing animated skits designed to engage viewers' minds. Each episode featured a variety of games and puzzles such as Digitville, where inhabitants had numbers for heads, and Tales of Rongovia, which challenged viewers to spot anachronisms in historical settings. It was like a mental playground, blending entertainment with education in a way that was both fun and challenging.
Now, one of the contestants in this 100-yard dash is clearly the winner. Which one? So the winner in this short dash is clearly the cheetah. He zips along at some 60 miles an hour.
And a little weird. While it may not be remembered today, those who experienced it often recall it fondly as a unique part of HBO's early programming. Number 9 on the list is One Night Stand. Much like Netflix today, back in the 80s, HBO featured a lot of stand-up comedy specials. This half-hour series began airing at the end of the decade and featured some of the top-performing comedians of the time, as well as several future standouts, including Bill Maher, Ellen DeGeneres, and this guy.
She wants to get married or something, you know? She's dropping hints now all the time, you know? I think she wants to get... Last week, she got a 1-year subscription to Bride magazine. And I renewed it for another 5 years.
Finally, there's Inside the NFL. Though it debuted in the late 70s, the show gained prominence throughout the 80s, becoming a staple for football fans seeking in-depth analysis, highlights, and behind-the-scenes content that went beyond what was typically available on network TV. What set it apart from the competition was that gritty, almost cinematic vibe of the game footage, and of course, the narrator's iconic voice.
By sacrificing men up front, the Giants were able to use 6 defensive backs against the Bills.
So there you have it. Forgotten gems from the 1980s HBO TV lineup. From the imaginative tales of the Ray Bradbury Theater to the hard-hitting documentaries of America Undercover, the cerebral challenges of Brain Games, and the lighthearted comedy, these shows highlight the diverse and innovative programming that set HBO apart in its early years. Did any of these jog your memory? Or perhaps introduce you to something new? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, don't forget to like and follow so you won't miss our next nostalgic journey. Dance your cares away, worries for another day. Let the music play down at Fraggle Rock. Where?
Down at Fraggle Rock.